Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kayamba FM, our weekly digest. I know it has been a while since we came live. A lot has been going on, but we have been sharing some informations and news um, and trending topics, and we have migrated a lot of our activities to our YouTube channels. As Facebook has proven to be a little bit unreliable in the way it encrypted videos, and their algorithm sometimes just blocks some of our streams. We try to investigate, and sometimes people are playing around with some of the audios, and they end up claiming rights that are not totally theirs. So we have shy away from playing musics, but all in all, we have been well, and it is Kayamba FM. It is our weekly digest. We are not going to be long today. Personally, and the Kayamba FM family has been going through some turbulences. We have been having challenges, tragedies befalling, and we have to stay supporting one another. So I've not been coming live frequently, and we are making an effort to operate with very independent, professional radio host who will be hosting our programs. So, such that the program does not rely on one person. So, apart from those things, Kayamba FMs is going to be coming consistently as normal. But as I mentioned, a lot has gone on in the last few weeks, particularly in the diaspora and back home in South Sudan. And as Kayamba FM, we make every effort to ensure that we are up to date with the information as we have built our own algorithms, our own machine learning that tracks what is happening. And then it follow the trend and will tell us what is being said about South Sudan. Remember, South Sudan is a nation made up of many nations. It's a country of nations. In other words, we have 64 nations in South Sudan, which we call tribes. And therefore, there have been some communal and tribal conflicts going on. And to learn something from that, we will just start by sharing the learning from a book written as we mentioned at the start of this program a few years back, that what does it mean to be a leader, and what is leadership. So in this sense, we will be, in this case, we will be sharing some learning from a book written by an American author. The book was about leadership and how do you lead during turbulence time, and it was written by Doris Kearns, Goodwin. Doris has dealt more with the American leaders, particularly the American presidents. And in her books, she tried to look at 4 top American leaders and how they have led during difficult times. Why is it relevant? At the moment, our country is going through a lot. There are some few challenges when it comes to the leadership in the nations. So there are some few challenges about leadership, whether at a communal level, whether at a national level, or whether at a personal level. leaderships has become a problem. And if leadership is a problem, how do you lead when the problems is impending, when the nations is going through difficulties? In this sense, we will review the book by Doris Kearns. And Doris was asking the questions, what does it take to lead people during crisis? Are leaders born? Are leaders such as Abraham Lincoln of the US, who became a leader at the age of 23, and he ran for the office of the first time? But then there was challenges for him to become a leader because he was an orphan who was born to a poor family. And as he was learning, he had gone through some turbulences, but there was a vision, and he crafted the skill of storytelling, which he learned from his father, apparently, and many of his friends around, and from the church where he attended. So, at the very young age, at about 21 years, Abraham Lincoln became kind of a puzzled young man. Then he had to find his passion and the call within him. So he was a child from nothing. And as he was a child from nothing, he aspired to give something to the society. And so he aimed to join politics, and he contested for the state legislations and became a leader, and he led the American during the war. There was this guy called Theodore Roosevelt. People will call him a very unhappy child. He came from a very fragile childhood. And because he had some physical difficulties, he has very poor health. He was disadvantaged intellectually as a child, but he did not stop. He had wanted to see his nations to go into glory. And people remember him. He's a guy who fought the war. He worked really hard, not only for his personal leaderships, but also for the leadership of the broader community for the interests of all. Now, do we have leaders in the current difficulties who are doing the same? Do we have people who look beyond their personal difficulties and aim for something bigger? Now, why am I saying this? I think it is important and critical that leadership is needed during turbulence time, when community, when society is going through difficulties. That is when people like Franklin's, the like of Lincoln's, the Martin Luthers, the John Garang's, the Mandelas are needed. People who could pull people together and direct them to the right direction, regardless of circumstances or personal challenges. This is where the leadership comes in. Can people lead during turbulence time? Friends, our nations, our communities, our societies are going through difficult time. And as I'm streaming this audio, many of you are aware of what is happening within our regions, and particularly, let's say, those one from the Upper Nile. They have undergone serious difficulties. It is the time for the leaderships to step up. I think there has been a vacuum and the lack of leadership in some respect. Why do I say so? Because every society and every community and every nation, whenever it is undergoing some difficult moment, it is always an opportunity for people who can step forward and say, you know what? Whether they are male or female, they should step forward and said we have a nation. This is where someone like Lyndon's, who became the first of the human rights movement, who followed the agenda, who dared and stepped forward and said, look, no matter how our law have been very stringent, we have to create an environment that is good for all, an environment that is good for our nations. Therefore, as South Sudanese at this moment, I think we need people, leaders, which have been highlighted by Doris Goodwin, because we are reviewing and learning from the book of Doris Goodwin about leadership during turbulent time. People who could say it, regardless of the difficulties, we have to step forward. We have to do the right thing for the community, for the nation. Leaders we should behave like army generals. During difficult times, leaders would say, you know what, we are going at the wrong course. We need the right direction. Therefore, I'm calling upon every individual to reflect, because, by the way, leadership does not start outside, it starts inside. Leadership starts within you as a person. That is where leadership starts. And that is what I'm talking about today at Kayamba FM. That is what I'm talking about. To learn from others about what it means to lead during difficult time. Now, is it something that everyone can do? Yes, of course. Leadership is different from the authority. There are those who are given the authority to make decisions on our behalf. But you are a leader. A leadership does come with some qualities. And those qualities are not outside, they are inside you. Why is it important? If you cannot lead yourself, it will be very difficult for you to be led by others. And that is what I'm talking about today. We are live at Kayamba FM, friends. You can join the show if you want to come to the studio. But as I mentioned, we are not going to be long. I thought I would just make it a review. And before we continue with the review of the book, I'll play music a bit for you as I try to open the studio for those who are keen to join. So let's play our own music. Our music is generated using artificial intelligence, such that no one should claim any right on it. It is as good. Yes, you can see the numbers at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to call, I will allow people in shortly. And you can make a comment. I think I've seen people. So let me see. Seeing comment. You can comment. You can comment, and you can join the studio through the link which I've shared, and you don't have to show your face. You can turn off your camera. This is Kayamba FM. I'm a young Dwanya Jack from the city of Perth. As I said, we are going through a bit of a quiet moment, and we're still going through. But I had made the decision that, regardless of the turbulences, we're not going to be quiet by the challenges and things that are facing the Kayamba family in the community. We'll continue to do what we are doing. So if you have, if you wanna participate, feel free to join. You can share the video. Okay, we have been talking about what it means to lead during turbulent time. This was the book written by Godwin's. Miss Godwin's wrote a book. Doris Godwin's wrote a book on the leadership in turbulence time. That is the title of her book. And she outlined the leadership style of four American leaders: Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin's Roosevelt, Lyndon's. And in a book, she looked at the difficulties of each leader, both at the personal level and at the political level, and how they rose into prominence and how they led their nations after difficult periods. Now, the interesting case is the case of Lyndon's. Lyndon's became an American president after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. After the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1960s, I think early 1963, Lyndon was sworn in as the American president. But remember, Lyndon came from the extremist southern regions. And John F. Kennedy was the American president who tried to fill the American with hope and restoring the glory of the United States. Lyndon emerged to become a leader who made some difficult choices. He made some difficult decisions. He crafted some pieces of legislation that opening up the space for the African American in terms of their participation during in making of political decisions such as voting during elections and few other privileges. We not say that he did it perfectly, but in the book, Doris Goodwin tried to highlight that in order to become a leader, you have to be in that position where you can make decisions, whether during good time or difficult time. And every nation has its own history and its own period of challenges, where the nations is faced with issues that can threaten its own existence. And when a society is faced with difficulties and its existence is threatened, then it requires people to step forward, leaders to take the authority and point the direction for the people, point the direction for the nation. When the direction is pointed, you find that the population is likely to follow suit. Because people sometimes during difficult movement need to be led, need to be guided. And people always talk of democracy. But one thing which people don't realize is that democracy is a guided system. It is not floating as people think. Democracy is always guided by the owners. Yes, I want to repeat it again. Democracy is a system that is guided. It's not as free as you think. For those who get involved in the political decisions, or those who participate at least in political parties, whether in the West or in the continental Africa, or wherever you are, if you take time and look into the politics of the nation or wherever you are, and if you try to participate, you find that those nations which present themselves to be democratic are not as democratic as you think. Why? Because there are people in the authority that are making decisions to ensure that the nation is guided to elect leaders and bring up leadership that would have what they call the national interest. Though I don't believe there is such thing as national interest. It is the interest of the powerful that is pushed over and become the national agenda. It is the personal ideologies or people who are at the top that are playing the chess, people who know the movement on the chessboard in the boardroom that corrupted the ideology. And such ideologies become the ideologies of the nation. And you cannot look far than the case of our current ruling party in South Sudan, the SPLM. SPLM's ideology was driven and guided by one man ideology. And that leader, who is the late Dr. John Grant, his ideology and his thinking as his mindset became the ideologies of the SPLM. Throughout the 21 years of war, and because his ideologies became the ideologies of SPLM, the party was left on a very shaky ground. Okay? So whenever the ideologues is gone, then people who will come in will find it difficult because it is not enshrined in them. Yes, there might be structures of the organization in place, but you'll find that people will talk superficially about those things, but they are not rooted in them. You see, that is what leadership sometimes is required. Because during difficult time, if there is no ideology that is guiding the leadership, if there is no cemented principle that guided that society, that nations, that community, then a nation will be faced with difficulty, and leadership during turbulent times matters. The wisdom and the quality of the leadership is known during crisis. Good leaders are known during crisis. Good leaders are not known during good time. If you want to know whether a leader is good, wait for crisis. See how they react during crisis. And that's what I'm talking about here today at Kayamba FM. Folks, I'll not be very long. As I told you before, we have been going through some few things that has impeded us. But at the end of the day, we are still grateful to God because we are here. At least we can chat, interact, and have a privilege to have another day. And that is what it means to be thankful and to be grateful. So at Kayamba FM, we are grateful. So you are listening to Kayamba FM. This is our weekly digest. We were reviewing a book by Doris, Kearns, Goodwin, Leadership in Turbulent Time. What does it mean to lead during crisis? That is the book we are reviewing. We are trying to learn from Doris Kearns Goodwin, Leadership in Turbulent Time. South Sudan has been going through turbulences. Communities against communities. Regions against regions. Politicians are holding daggers at each other. It is a difficult movement that requires holistic leadership. Now, what does it mean to be a leader? It is to be in the front, to lead, to show the direction. That is what it means to be a leader. Now, if the leader is not in the front, that is not a leader. The leader leads and the subjects follow. That is what it means to be leadership. So during turbulence time, leaders are required to lead. Okay? Leaders lead, the subject follow. But then when the subject try to lead and the leader follow them behind, you find the nation, the community, the society will lose direction. And that is when people say there is a leadership vacuum, because the masses are charging and the leaders are not visible. But when the leaders are in front, then the direction become narrow because it is leader in front. Okay, see it like a pyramid. The leader in front, the masses at the back. And when the leader is in front, see it as a pyramid. I'll show you here. See it as a pyramid. That's the best way to demonstrate it. When the leader is in front, then look at this pyramid of Kayamba Bam, the blue line there. See that triangles. At the top is a leader. So the decision choices are not in the hand of everybody because it's pointing the direction. The masses fall behind. And when the masses fall behind, then they follow what the leader said. But then if you reverse it and you let the masses charge and lead. So if you reverse the triangle and allow the masses to lead, to charge randomly, then there will be chaos. There always a chance that there will be chaos when the leaders take the back seats. And that's what has happened in our nation, particularly among the communities. Some sections have allowed their people to go randomly. Whether it is intercommunal fighting on the West Bank, whether it is a quarreling happening on the East Bank of the Nile. You see, this is what people need to see. On the East Bank of the Nile, there is a quarreling. That's identity crisis. On the West Bank of the Nile, it is the intercommunal fighting. People are holding daggers at each other. Okay? In the mountainous region of Equatoria, it is quarreling over purchase. And also fighting for political space and looking for some kind of self-identity, independent autonomy kind of. Whether it is into the north, it is about the borders. It is chaos everywhere because the nation has become a nation of all leaders with no authority. Everyone has become a leader, but with no authority and power. And those who are given the authority, the mandate to lead, are being overrun by masses that are chaotic, disorganized, and have no particular agenda. Because everything you push for, you have to have the ultimate goal. And in this particular moment, I think it is time where leaders must step forward and take charge of their subjects. Okay? It is time for leaders to step forward and take charge of their subjects. Take charge of your people. Leaders across the board, all the leaders, take charge of your subject. I think what is happening in our nations is a question of leadership. And it's a question of the subject themselves not being leaders. Because when I'm talking of leadership starts at individual level. Are you leading yourself properly? That is the question. You have to lead yourself. In you, it has to be in you. And when you lead yourself, then you will now understand the sense of authority. And the moment you understand the sense of authority, then you can easily submit, even though sometimes some decision of the leader may go against you, but then you will respect it, regardless of the level of disagreement. And this is what has happened in the nation we call democratic, where the powers has been divided into the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. That is the model of democracy in a way. The model of democracy operates in three center of powers, three pillars: executive, legislature, and judiciary. So, and a citizen is subjected to respect the decision of some of these institutions, and they call it division of powers. You can disagree. You don't have to be happy, but you do it with decorums, with respect, knowing that because if you believe you are a leader, know that one day you will lead and you'll make decisions that are not popular to people, and people will respect it. If you know that you are a leader, and that's what I meant, can you lead yourself first? And then those who have been mandated to lead the people, can they take the leadership? And that is the story which Doris Goodwin tried to narrate in her books. And the title of the book is Leadership in Turbulent Times. Mean leadership during time of difficulty, leadership during crisis. That is what Doris Kearns is advocating for in her book. And she gave example of 4 top American leaders: Johnson Lyndon's, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, and Theodore Roosevelt. These are 4 American presidents who were faced with difficulty, but they have to navigate through it to avoid the fragmentation of the nations. The Federation called United States of America. In other words, these are all different states brought together as one nation. In other words, these were people who were little colonies of their own brought together. In other words, they could have lived independently, but visionary people brought them together. And that is how societies are formed. It is one family, plus the other family, plus the other family, they form a village. And 2, 3 villages will form a community. In our case, it is one family, 2 children, a wife and a husband form a family, and that become a house, and another house will form a subsection that are related by either blood or socially. And then a number of villages will form what we now call Buma, or a court center. And a number of Bumas form what we call a Fayam. And a number of Fayam form a county. A number of counties form either a state. But then these ancestral villages, these ancestral communities, people who have one lineage or people who have one social setup form a community. And the moment they become a group, then leadership is needed because there will be divergence of ideas. People's views will be different. And this is where leadership comes in. I think we need leadership at all levels across the board. Leadership at individual level. Lead yourself first. If you can confidently lead yourself, then you can aspire to advise leaders on what to do. How do you lead yourself? That is the question. It comes with that self-dignity. Do you respect yourself? Do you respect others? Do you take care of your own affairs? Do you take care of your own self? Are you looking after your own names? If you do that, particularly your own personal respect, if you value it a lot, then you are building your own personal leaderships. You are leading yourself. Are you grateful that you are part of a certain society, community? If you are doing that, then you start leadership within yourself. And then you can lead yourself during crisis. How do you conduct yourself during crisis? When you disagree with a brother or a sister, how do you conduct yourself? And that is leading during turbulence time. And you can extrapolate that into a group, and a group will have a leader of that particular gathering. And number of leaders or groups come together, villages come together, form a society. Societies come together and they form a region, and the region will have leaders, and the nation end up with a leader. But it comes to individualism. If the individual cannot lead themselves by self-respect, then you find the society will be in chaos. Because there will be never enough police officers to police everyone in the society. Never. Even in those nations where you find the law and order is in place, it is because individuals decided to do the right thing for himself, for herself, for the nation, for her family. When you start doing the right thing, become discipline yourself. If you discipline yourself, then you become a leader, because leadership requires discipline, a serious level of discipline. It is discipline in a sense that it requires a lot of self-controls. And these are the values which are being taught in our churches. We are great at going to churches, but very poor at living by the word. Therefore, friends, today at KBM, I was just trying to share the review of the book by Doris Kearns, Goodwin. And before we end the show, let me see if anyone that wanted to come in here. Before we end the show, I'll play a bit of a song and I'll share about what is happening in the media. All right, let's play this. So let's see. Okay, let's see what is happening in the news. South Sudan in the news. Now, this news were full in as of yesterday. As I said, we have built a machine learning algorithm, okay, a function of artificial intelligence that go out to the internet, see what is being written about South Sudan or about us, and you pull it in. Now, it said United States has announced 112 million, which is a 3-year initiative to support independent media. Where is it supporting that media? Let's have a look. But let's have a look. Where is it supporting that independent media? So it is supporting the independent media in South Sudan. So those one in the media houses, let's see how this money will be spent. We all know that 20% of the donation of the funding, less than 20%, normally reach the beneficiaries. On average, it's 10%. There was a study done across the board, and they said if a donor has done very well, then they will spend only 20%. The 20% will go to the people, which the money was intended for. The rest go back to the nations that donate them. But most of the time, about 10%. In some cases, extremely less than 5%. So let's see. Another one is South Sudan on the sport over child soldiers. This one was reported by the Nation.Africa, but the other news was by theweir.com. The Nigerian newspaper has reported that the National Youth Service, whatever, assured South Sudan delegate of support. So there has been a delegation of the National Youth Service Corps, which want to form some sort of cooperation with the South Sudan, and the National Youth Service Corps, I think, is a Nigerian youth programs, and they want to form a cooperation with South Sudan. South Sudan become a receiver of donation everywhere, even in those nations where people are struggling. South Sudan still need donation. I think it may even become a time where Somalia will send delegation to come and support South Sudan. That is so bad. That's so bad. Now, Uganda and South Sudan traders renew call for compensations. Now, what are they demanding for? What are they being compensated for? So this is what it's saying. It was reported in Kampala by the Independent that the Ugandan traders have renewed their demand to Parliament seeking compensation of $15 million from the government for losses they incur during the armed insurgency in South Sudan. Like 150 businessmen, okay? 150 businessmen from Uganda are seeking compensation from South Sudan. They think South Sudan should compensate them Okay? That's what they're saying. They think that South Sudan should compensate them. South Sudan become a nation where everyone can just claim anything. Okay? During the war, when the war broke out in South Sudan, Uganda traders want South Sudan to compensate them. I don't get it. This is what Uganda is demanding, that South Sudan should compensate the traders. What happened to the concept of what we call the sovereign risk? As a businessman, if you go and put your money into Mogadishu business somewhere, if you invest your money in Mogadishu, in Somalia, if that shop is burned down, you did not do your due diligence at what we call the sovereign risk. You cannot go around and say, a nation will compensate me for the war that has occurred in their country. This is, it is absurd, does not make sense. You see what I'm saying? Get it this way. Every business, wherever you invest, you do your own risk analysis. If you go now to Ukraine and go and open a shop, if a missile land on that shop and burn it completely, you're not going to go to the Ukrainian government and say, compensate us for what was occurred in your country, because you have not done your due diligence. Okay? I don't understand what these Ugandans are demanding. Okay? They are talking of ridiculous amount of money. Unless it was a contract to supply something to South Sudan, and South Sudan has not done it. But for anyone, the way it has been worded, they're asking money for the insurgents. But anyway, okay, this is another one. How Kenya Bank aided? Okay, this is another one. The Kenyan Bank are assisting in perpetuations of a scam against South Sudan. This was reported by the Nation newspaper. And it said, this, the scamming that is occurring is being aided and helped by the Kenyan banks. South Sudan has become a hunting ground in a sense that anyone can do anything. Now, this is the saddest part. And this is what I want people to understand. It said 1.8 million malnourished children in South Sudan. Okay? 1.8 million malnourished children in South Sudan. Friend, this is so bad. South Sudan has a population, South Sudan has a population of 12 million, depending on where you find your statistics. And out of that, 1.4 million are malnourished children. About 9% of the populations are the children below the age of 5. If you look at this critically, you'll find that the number of people who are majority of those ones subjected to this risk are children. There was this statistic which I did during flood, during Jonglei flood. There was this statistics, and I had supplied this. It was used as part of the presentation to Australian government for humanitarian aid. You find that, and this was 2 years ago, over 556,000 children were malnourished in Jonglei states alone. Okay? I want to make this clear. Over 556,000 children were malnourished in Jonglei states alone. Now, the UN is saying 1.4 million children are malnourished in South Sudan. Out of 1.4 million, 556,000 are from Jonglei. Yes, I want to pay attention, my brothers. I want you to pay attention, the brothers and sisters from Jonglei states. And when I'm saying Jonglei, it is covered the entire Jonglei. In South Sudan, 1.4 million children are malnourished. Sorry, shouldn't be that. Should be this. 1.4 million children are malnourished. Okay? And out of 1.4 million children, South Sudan, 1.4 million children are malnourished. And normally it's just those children below the age of 5. But the data during the flood crisis, we had 556 children, 556,000 were from Jonglei state. Okay? I want you to picture this. During the flood disaster, this was the number of children that were at risk. And this, we are talking severe acute malnutrition. Now, the mortality rates, I don't want to show it here, is pretty high. These are the children who are at risk of dying. And this is from Jonglei states. But then the new report is raising alarm for the people of Jonglei, for the people of South Sudan. So, in other words, how about just say it in simplicity? 40% of these children are from Jonglei states. And we are quarreling on what I don't know. Of course, most of them may not be purely from within around the town of Bor and big town, but the extreme rurals, whether they are Nuers, whether they are Murles, whether they are Anuak, whether they are Kachipos, whether they are Jia, they are people from Jonglei. Because I'm talking entire Jonglei. This is what from a statistical point of view, we look at the former Jonglei, not the one that the administrative area zone out of it. No. From statistical reporting, it is viewed as one Jonglei. So let's do the summary. So in summary, there is a serious crisis. South Sudan fighting displaced 8,000. This is intercommunal fighting, and this was as of the 13th of October, just 2 days ago. The Kenyan bank, yes, they are part of the scam. And this is a situation in South Sudan. Flooding is occurring and will continue to occur. Flooding is not going to stop. This is what I want to tell our people. If you think flooding will end, it's not going to stop. In fact, it will become frequent, intense, and quicker. with climate change, you'll see a lot of flash flooding. The rainfall will become so heavy and so quick. It will pour down quickly, but then it will dry quickly. So you still need water, but at the same time, you have to learn how to manage to deal with water. So the situation you are seeing here is not going to go away very quickly. We have to adapt to live with it. It's going to be frequent for the people of South Sudan. These situations is going to be frequent. So people will have to adapt to learn to live with it. So these are some of the highlight that I wanted to make. But the news is there. Go to FPD Institute, and you will find all the news. Just go to the news and click on it and expand it. So if you go to the news like that, it will come like that, and it will show you. You see 51 article. Click on it, and you'll see all these. You don't have to scroll the internet. Scrolling the internet is not needed. We have done the hard work. We have built the algorithm, and the information is there for you. Please feel free to be part. So thank you, and we'll end it here for this week. We'll come a little bit more frequently than normal, and this is Kayamba FM. Friends, continue to follow us on Facebook and our YouTube channels. A lot of things are happening, a lot of videos, very informative presentations. We have them on our YouTube channel. Just subscribe. You'll be surprised how much you'll find from there. It is something that we are very passionate. We are educational channels. We are not journalists. Okay? I'm not a journalist. We are here to share knowledge and research. So most of the information will be artifacts. We'll share with you. We'll continue to share. But we'll have a couple of our hosts who are trained journalists in the near future. They will be presenting on this channel on Kayamba FM. We are an online radio, so you can follow us. And if you go to Zeno FM and look for Kayamba FM, we are simulcasting 24/7. And also, we are releasing our own apps, Kayamba FM app. So you can be listening for programs, streamings, radios while you are on your day-to-day activities. But our today learning was leadership during difficult time. It was a book written by Doris Goodwin. Leadership in Turbulence Time. That's the title of the book. Leadership in Turbulence Time. A book by Doris Kearns. Please try to follow us. This is Kayamba FM. I will leave you with the music, and we will meet again. Thank you for listening to Kayamba FM, and have a good week. And we will try to share more and more information. Thank you. Bye.